right here. Yep. And then Hayden, you can.
What's up, man? How's everybody doing?
Great. Nice. So we got Warryn Campbell in the building. More than just all the things that I mentioned, which multi-Grammy award winning, multi-platinum, every single thing you can think of. But yeah, let's just put the multi on it. But he's also my mentor. All of these things here wouldn't have wouldn't have started if it wasn't for the times that I interned. Yeah, you know how to get that. So as far as your perspective on your favorite artists you've worked with. Let's start there. Who is one of your favorite artists you've ever worked with, and why?
You want me to say it on camera?
Yeah. All right.
Get me in trouble, man.
Okay. All right.
My favorite artist I've worked with,
or one of the favorite artists.
Well, it's a couple of categories when you ask me that. First of all, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah.
I'm super proud of this guy. This guy's. I remember he was just an intern at my studio, killing it. But yeah, so there's a couple of categories. My favorite artists are usually the artists that allow me the freedom to just do what I want to do. Because you have artists that come in with a kind of preconceived idea of what they want. And so they sort of kind of box you in creatively. In which to that, I'm always like, listen, I'm Burger King. You can have it your way. It's not about me. It's about your process. But when I'm able to, just the artist comes in and says, whatever you want to create a sound for me, that's the best. So I would have to say, you know what? I'm gonna have to say Kanye.
So going even further into that, you just did Jail for Kanye on the Donda album, or you worked on that. What was that process like?
Well, that was so there's a few songs on that album that I actually produced. It was the one called 24 and another one.
Amazing. Those chords? That's you on the chord?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Every time I hear those shifts, I'm like, yo, okay, go. Yeah.
And there's another one called is it called Back to Life?
Come to Life?
Come to Life?
Oh, Come to Life, yeah.
But Jail is just something he had already. The beat was done and everything. And normally my role with him is I'm doing music.
Yeah. This
time I get a call. I was actually playing with my kids in the pool or whatever, and he calls and says, can you come to San Francisco? I'm like, when? He was like, now. Okay. So I left my house, went straight to the airport and went to San Francisco.
Hopped out the pool. Let's go. Yeah.
He had locked down the St. Regis Hotel. He locked the whole hotel down.
Yeah.
Brought his cooks in and had 5 floors and all of the ballrooms. One ballroom he had just a bunch of clothes in, and another ballroom he had, set up like a studio. So I walk in, and there's all these tables that he's put together. There's a long row. It looks like about 12 guys there with laptops. Everybody's trying to make beats, and he's right here by the Pro Tools rig and the mic. He's just
yeah.
What the heck is going on? I've never seen it. So he turns around. He has this freaking thing on his head.
Yeah.
He turns around. He's like, ah! He stops everything. So we hug him.
Yeah.
This is the real. It was really crazy. He made the real Kanye records. This is the
Yeah.
He's kind of because these guys are new. I guess he's trying to motivate them, but it was uncomfortable for me. He said, listen to this. Boom, he plays. I need the hook is incomplete,
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. He's like, I guess it's going to jail tonight. I'm like, okay. So I'm just sitting listening. By the way, Rick Rubin is there.
Oh, really? Wow.
He's
Okay.
right here.
By the way, he's just chilling. Yeah.
He's just sitting there with his shoes off, chilling. I go, okay. You need this line, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, God gonna post my bail tonight. He was like, ah! He starts running. He ran out the room.
Yeah.
And that's how I got on the record.
You know, the craziest thing is like when I first started, you know, so I started off interning for Warryn like when I was 18 years old or 17 years old. And when I first came into the studio, I just remember like Warryn can hop on like a piano, he can hop on like a trumpet or like, you know, all of these different instruments. But also, you know, the reason why I even bring up jail too is the Swiss Army knife, like understanding of a producer and songwriter or, you know, like when I think about like LeBron getting into like basketball, he like switched up the game where the game was more of like this, you know, shooting, you know, like you know, centers are now like shooting 3-pointers. You know what I mean? Like Dirk, you know, Nowitzki was part of that too, but there was only a certain amount of people that were like thinking left, you know, like especially even for you coming from, you know, like the gospel background, but also pushing the limits there or whatnot in the gospel world, being like, hey, we should, you know, bring everything together or whatnot. But then even musically, you know, being a Swiss Army knife from like, you know, I've seen you sit down with artists and like dope crazy artists, like, you know, and writing their lyrics and being like, yo, okay, like, what do you think about this? And moving that, you know, for a long time, producers were just producers. Trackmen were just trackmen, like just making beats. And, you know, that's what you had to do. You just sat there. I mean, or you didn't, but you were part of like this anomaly of where we are now, where you have to wear all the hats. You know what I mean? Like rather than it being just one part. So talk to me just about like your, you know, as far as like when you walk into a room as a producer, songwriter, artist, like how do you assess a room, because that takes some time as far as like the psychology of the room and understanding, you know, what type of people you're working with. A lot of times people are like, I got dope beats and dope stuff or whatever, but that only takes you so far. You know what I mean? So talk to us about like, you know, being able to use that kind of superpower that you have.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a lot easier to access now, but when I first started, you know, trying to figure out why you were invited into the room was a lot more difficult because, you know, from my standpoint, like, okay, I'm a musician, I play instruments, I do beats, but then you have these personalities, like, you know, going into a room with a Tupac who doesn't do beats, but his ego and his persona is so huge. I mean, he fills up the whole room. He actually had me believing that he can make the beat better than I could.
Oh, wow.
It's just how, you know, watch out, I got the drum machine. He doesn't even know how to work it.
Watch out.
But he's just like, you know, and so and I'm a quiet guy.
Yeah.
I'm going like, man, so it took me a while to figure out.
You're like 16 at that time too, right? Or like
17, yeah.
17, wow, okay, go ahead.
And so it's like, you know, trying to figure out where I fit into the room. So over time, I just figured like, where are the holes?
Yeah.
You know, like in the room, like where in this session, who's not doing what? And let me do that.
Yeah.
Right? So I quickly found out in those sessions, most of the producers, like if you look at the All Eyes on Me album, my name is nowhere.
Yeah.
But I did 17 songs, almost 17 songs.
Like the whole thing, yeah.
And towards the end of the process, Suge Knight says he wants to do a publishing deal with me, but I had already had a publishing deal meeting with EMI and Big John, so I said I already got a publishing deal. I didn't, but I mean I wanted to sign with Big John.
Yeah. So
he's like, well, I can't put your name on the album because I need publishing. I was like, he said, but you can come work, we're gonna pay you. You can come every day. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So if you look at the credits on that album, anything that says produced by Johnny J, that's me.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So what happened was I quickly figured out that the hip hop producers, most of them couldn't play instruments at all.
Yeah.
They just knew how to work the drum machine.
Yeah.
They knew how to sample a record, make beats, but then when it came to, okay, now we need a string sound, we need somebody to play that bass sound on, or we need to play a keyboard, you know, whatever, I'll be right there for that. So I just started just being the guy. I would be in the hallway, like, hey man, you need something? And I would go to the studio every day, and they would see me there, like, oh, Warren's here, can you come play? And it became like, oh, he's the guy that plays on everything.
Yeah. And
for DJ Quick, I played all the keyboard stuff, you know, and he could play.
Yeah.
He could play keyboard and chords and synth lines and bass lines and program and scratch, you know. So I was like, where do I get in? For him, it was like, okay, I need somebody to play what I can't play, because he can play some chords, but then I would take it to another level.
Yeah.
And play all this crazy stuff like solos and, you know, stuff like that he couldn't do, that he could probably do now, because he's developed as a keyboard player. But so what I did was just find out where the holes were. After a while, it was like, okay, oh, he does beats too.
Yeah.
So when they were looking, I remember they signed a kid named Danny Boy to Death Row Records, He's the guy that's singing on the hook of "I Ain't Mad at You."
Oh yeah.
They signed him, and they were looking for a producer for him. I was like, he was a church kid. He knew who I was. He was from Chicago. He knew, playing some gospel thing I did. He knew my name. So he was like, man, can you come work with me? I said, for real? Yeah. So I started doing beats. And when they heard that, they was like, oh my God, you do this too?
Yeah.
That's when it became like, okay.
The bigger, yeah. When did you start writing? Were you writing?
I started writing at 12 years old first.
Wow. Okay.
Just started writing lyrics. I would listen to these crazy, like the Carpenters and Burt Bacharach, like all these.
Oh shoot!
Like
real writers though.
These like Alan and Marilyn Bergman. They wrote like a lot of, big songs for Broadway, stuff like that. I would listen to the lyrics to like Barbra Streisand records.
Yeah.
Now those lyrics are crazy.
Crazy.
Like nobody can write songs like that in contemporary music. Like, so I'm like, and then there was a guy, a gospel writer named Marvin Winans. His stuff was like, and Stevie Wonder. They would write things that you could see.
Mm.
So I took to that as a little kid. I'm like, man, like I can actually see in my head what they're talking about. So that's what I started trying to write, lyrics and stuff like that. So before I was even producing, making beats, or before I can play very well, I could write.
Yeah.
And so, and when we were kids, we had to memorize these really, really lengthy Bible verses, like King James Version Bible verses that I didn't even understand at all, like the these and the thous and the, but I had to memorize these long 14 verses and 28 verses, and,
Yeah.
But it helped me with like, when it came time to write songs, I never had a lack of vernacular and words. I always had like a bunch of
stuff to write.
Yeah, my vocabulary was crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy. I went to the Tupac Museum or whatnot, and seeing really like the understanding that Tupac wrote about everything, whether that was going to like the grocery store, whether that was just waking up, and you even see from the very beginning how his mom like really cultivated his skill for writing, and it being more so like when I look at Tupac, I look at him like, oh, this dude literally was just conveying what he felt like on every single. Now, as far as just like work ethic, like there's this this quote. I didn't accept at first, but I started to accept it a lot more lately, which is, you either have it or you don't, right? Mm-hmm. And at first I was like, well, can it be developed? And it's like, well, I don't think that it can be, be so developed in the sense that, you either want something or you don't want it. And it shows in, who you are and what you do. Every time I've seen you or like whatever, you're always playing something or you're always, doing something, like whether that's on IG or whatever the case is. It's like, I know that you're doing it every day. It's not a part of like being successful. Like success is a part of it because you're talented, but like, what are your thoughts on that kind of breakdown? Like,
yeah, I do believe either you have it or you don't, but that doesn't mean either you have the talent or you don't. It's either you have the drive or the desire or you don't. Either you really want this or you really don't. Mm-hmm. If the things that you really want, there's something that you do every day that's going to help you get to it. All right. I knew that I wanted to be the best musician or the best. And every day to this day, I do it now. Yeah. Like I get up, I'm playing every day. I'm, just
son's killing it.
Yeah, And I'm saying the same thing to him. Like sometimes I get him, like, I don't think you really want to be a musician. He's like, why? I said, dude, like you spent like 12 hours on Fortnite last night. I see the thing, Did you practice it all yesterday?
Yeah.
He was like, no. I was like, how are you gonna get good?
Yeah.
He was like, Dad, I almost made $200,000 in a Fortnite tournament. I came in third place. I was like,
that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. When I thought he was playing. I saw it. I was like, oh shoot, he almost really Kid's 12.
Yeah. Wow.
He's nice. So I said, okay. I eased up off of it at the same time.
Hold on, everybody.
At the same time, I'm like,
on me.
Let's split it.
Yeah.
All right, so you can play Fortnite till 4 o'clock after that, because he's homeschooled, so he's like, all right. He only goes to school on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Tuesday, he's up like playing, you know.
Yeah.
And after 4 o'clock, you know, he's in the youth orchestra of LA. It's like the LA Philharmonic's farm team for little kids.
Oh wow.
So he plays upright bass, you know, stuff in that. And so he has to go to that for 3-4 hours every day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, so we're finding a healthy balance. My thing is, it's something that you do every single day. I'm playing every day. I'm making a beat every day. Not because nobody's paying me. Nobody pays me to turn my equipment on. They don't. I don't get a check every time I walk in my studio and start. I don't. It's just I do it because I love it. I don't, you know, get a check for digging through the crates, finding new samples, and you know, that's what I really love to do. Is I have it.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, when it comes to my son or anybody else or you guys, if you don't have that drive that makes you get up and say, you know, I want to do this every day, maybe you don't have it.
Because I was thinking about it from one perspective. The one perspective is that you could do something every day. You know what I mean? Like whether it sucks or if it's good or whatever. I remember watching one interview with Dr. Dre and he was just like, you know, I like to make stuff that doesn't sound good because then I know what not to make. You know what I mean? Like every now and then. You know what I mean? And so when I learned that from you, it was one of those things where I was like, I started to think about it in a sense of like, if you plan to do this for the rest of your life, you have to be at your lowest or your highest or whatever the point is or whatnot, because that's not contingent on, you know, your ability. You know what I mean? Your ability is innate. It's inside of you.
Writer's block is an illusion.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is you want to make something really dope, right? And so what you're doing is you're editing yourself as you're writing. Because you don't feel like what you're doing initially is good enough. Mm-hmm. What you have to do is let that whack thing come out.
Yeah.
I call it the whack juice. Get the whack juice out. Do the whack beat. Write the whack song. Because it's not writer's block. It's just not as good as you want it to be. So just, if it's terrible, finish the terrible song, put it to the side to get to the good one. You know what I mean? You're not blocked. You just block. It's just not as good as you want it to be at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I don't believe in it. I mean, we can write about anything, you know, all day. You're not blocked. You're more stuck in terms of quality. You know what I'm saying?
Of where you want it to be. Right. So like I don't think a lot of producers know that, you know, upcoming producers, it's like there's phases within a record, right? Like in a sense that you create the track, you know, then the artist hops on it. Then you have to get through, you know, like these passages, what I call, which is like 1, does the artist like it? 2, does the management like it? 3, you know, sometimes it's clear because you don't have these middlemen and these people. But sometimes you do have to go above and beyond where you're like, I'm going to bring a choir in because, you know, this is, and I've seen you do that several times, even up to the point where, you know, on mixing day, you're coming in with the bass. And you're I'm changing the bass line today, and it's literally due tomorrow, but you're going to change the bass.
That's nerves.
Yeah.
That's nerves. That's panic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the things you go through when you have to turn a record in, and it's the last moment. And you're like, man, did I do my best? Did I put everything in this that I possibly could to make it, you know? And then sometimes it's like, shoot. We got an hour. That bass line's not right. Let me do it. Yeah. When I probably should have did it, but something about that edge, that last minute, that for me it juices me. I'm like, and I get all these ideas that I didn't have 3 days ago. I'm like, I didn't even care 3 days ago. Yeah. But now that I have to turn it in and like my name's on it, you know, my reputation's on it. I'm like. Shit, like, dang, let me listen to it again. Nah, man, I can't.
Then we're going to open it up for questions. But, like, as far as, like, advice, you know, getting to, one, you're not necessarily, I mean, you're, like, I coined this word, which is, like, the pluralist, right? But it's multi-hyphenated. It's being able to do multiple things all at once. You're also, you know, a pastor at your church or whatnot. You're also an entrepreneur or whatnot. Like, one thing I tell, like, my guys here is, like, you know, you might not know this right now, but you're an entrepreneur right now. You know what I mean? Because in this business, the way that you make money is you have to go out and you have to go get it. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like
you're not punching in.
Yeah, nobody's gonna give you, you know, like, hey, here's a record. You gotta like literally call people and do the work. You know what I mean? And so with all that said, like, you know, you own your own record label. You had your own studio. You've done, you know, everything. You've come out with a Grammy-winning album based on your wife's album or solo project or whatnot. That's like amazing, you know.
I'm ready for a Grammy again this year.
I'm sure, you
Crazy.
know, you know.
For a
But,
single, for
yeah,
one single.
like to go outside the lines and be like, hey, I'm gonna do this independently, and then go ahead and get your, you know, I mean, Grammy, you know, along with that or whatnot is exceptional. Not with an artist. I mean, they already have their, you know, their base, but to be able to do that alone is incredible.
Yeah.
So anyway, with all that said, you know, like what for you, what is your, I'm sure your goals and things have changed over time, or maybe they haven't, you know what I mean? But what is the ultimate goal for you, and what's some advice that you can give everybody before we open up for questions?
I guess the ultimate goal for me is there's this word. The word is just professional. When I was a kid, what I was trying to do was make music that sounded as good as the music on the radio. And it may be because of the equipment I had at the time. I had one drum machine. It was a Yamaha RX-17. It's like a very, very cheap version of a Lindrum sound type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I had a keyboard called a DX21. Wasn't multi-temporal, so you can use one sound at a time, right?
That's a talk box one, right?
No. DX, that's a DX100.
Okay.
DX, the larger the number, the smaller the keyboard. So
okay.
From DX1 to 5 to the DX7 was the popular one. And I had the DX21. It's just the keyboard sizes are smaller.
Oh, gotcha.
And they have less sounds and stuff. So at 21, but I would put a tape in my little boombox, turn on the station, this AM station called K-Day, and they play hip hop all day. I would record it, and when I got home, I would listen to the tape and try to emulate, you know, the beats that I heard. Just trying to be, I would always say professional. Like, man, my beats don't sound professional. And then when I got more equipment and started really trying to really work on it, and my beats started sounding professional, right? And my wife laughs at me all the time. She's like, why do you still say that? Because instead of saying like, man, this song that we just did is dope, it sounds professional.
Yeah.
You know, because the bar is up here. I'm listening to Quincy, professional. Data Foster, professional. Dre, quick, you know. I want my joint to sound like that. And so that was always the goal. Like, that was like, beyond that in terms of selling records, having hit records, winning Grammys, I feel like I'm called to music. It's a calling. I don't think I was called to win Grammys, even though I had 5. It's just I was called to take the music and elevate it. You know what I'm saying? And take the thing and you know, raise the barometer, so to speak. You know what I mean? And leave music. So when I'm gone, this stuff will outlive me. You know, my grandchildren be like, oh, my granddad did that song, you know, whatever. And that was, and still is, to make the best art possible. Like, you know, I don't think Picasso or any other, you know, big artist was like, I'm about to kill him with this.
Yeah.
Nah, he's just trying to express himself the best way he can. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to express myself and make some really chilling, you know, and I have bad intentions. Like, I want people to hear my music and vomit because it's so good. Like, I want people to hear my music and get a headache. Like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? You know, bad intentions in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like, so why I put so much into this record, man, when you hear it, like, you can't believe what you're hearing.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Like, what I hate, and this is my advice to you, don't make good music. Good music sucks. Make exceptional music. I hate good music. Good music is like, it makes me itch, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, good is just good. But man, don't you want to be great? Don't you want to be excellent? Don't you want to be exceptional? Like, man, only this person can do that. Only Augie can make a record like that. That's him. He's the only one that can do that. You know, sitting around, you know, everybody's music, whether they're a great musician, a great producer or not, everybody's music is good in their head. The trick is getting that to come out the speakers. what's in your head to come out the speakers and be exceptional. Everybody's good. And just, but nah, man, you gotta be the best. The absolute. If my music is not the best, and I'm talking about before anybody hears it. Like I'm listening to the radio, and people on the radio, top 40 radio, those supposed to be the best, right? When I play my record, after listening to that, and my record doesn't sound better than that, then it's not the best. If it sounds like that, it's not the best. Because why are you doing records like people that are already doing records? There's no, you're not creating room for yourself. I remember when I was first I got signed to my publishing deal, and for 2 years I couldn't get a placement.
Wow.
We were doing everything. That's when they were sending cassette tapes and DAT tapes to all the labels.
Yeah.
And then finally, my publisher, Big John, at the time he was a creative director at EMI. Now he's the chairman and CEO of Sony Music Publishing, the biggest, so Big John Platt, yeah. And so back then we were in the streets just trying to get records placed. Everybody was like, nah. And I'm like 19, 20, going like, man, I'm just as good as all these other guys. He says, man, you competing with, at the time, you're talking about 1996. So Jammin' Lewis, Babyface in LA, Teddy Riley, like these guys, Dr. Dre, they were like
juggernauts.
Had it on lock. You couldn't get in. Dallas Austin, you couldn't. Jermaine Dupri, you could not get in. And so I'm talking to Big John, going, man, I'm just as good as them. He's like, that's your problem. The record labels, they know them. They don't know you. You can't be just as good as them. You got to be better. You got to come with something that's better. Something that, listen to what they do, and you do something that they can't do. That's the only way you're going to get in. And I'm just like, man, it's very frustrating. Then finally I broke the code and realized that there was certain things that I know about that maybe these guys don't. I can play all this pretty stuff, but I come from the street. I come from Death Row. I know how to make these really hard beats.
Yeah.
So I just put the two together, and it was like, oh, shoot. And I wrote a really dope song over it. It's pretty, but it's like these drums sound like I want to shoot somebody, right? But these melodies are beautiful, like, and everybody started buying these songs. Everybody started playing them. We got somewhere. And then that opened the door for me to do other things I wanted to do. But it was all about being the best at the time. If you want to do whatever, I don't care if you tie shoes better than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Just be the best at what you're doing, or strive to be, because think about it. Guy told me a statistic yesterday. I was on the phone with the guys at Universal who my label was going through. Like, there's 500,000 songs that come out every week. 500,000. And a lot of guys are trying to cheat the system because you only need 31 seconds of a record for it to qualify as a stream. So you got people doing all that kind of stuff. Just like bots and weird stuff. So that's included.
Bots making music.
It's all that stuff is included, but it's 500,000 little pieces of music, and your record has to stick out.
Have you ever had to I think everybody kind of deals with comparison, but have you ever had to deal with that? And if so, how did you
Deal with what?
Like comparing yourself to maybe other people, or ever being in a place where you're like, man, like you listen to something, you're like, I need to make something like that, or you're like noticing yourself copying someone else because they're higher up than you. And if so, like, how'd you kind of get yourself out of that and be like, okay, I need to be my own individual. I need to really stick to my own lane.
I did that really because of ego. So, like, if I hear Teddy Riley do a record, I'm like, I think it's dope. I want to know that I can do it too. So I would go in my studio and try to, like, emulate and make that same sound. And if I could, then I'd feel good about myself, like, oh, I can do that too. That's nothing. Then I go on and do my own thing. But then there's certain guys who just kind of like, who's the rival teams now in basketball? Like, it's just like the...
what is it like? I think Boston's back up now, right?
In LA? Yeah, no, Boston. Who's?
Oh, going at it. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching crazy right now. Anybody know?
I know there's a situation that just was in Milwaukee and something else.
Warrior.
We're talking like
it said something like that. No, it's like the new feuds. That's a new feud. I forgot what it is. Milwaukee and someone, I think.
Yeah. So in music, you have those too. amongst each other. Like, it's not very public. I had a guy, I might be a year older than him, but he started before me. And we both very similar, both came out of church, both, chubby, dark-skinned guys. I'm from the West Coast, he's from the East Coast. And he got his break. Like, he did a remix on this girl, and Biggie jumped on it. It was like a big deal. His name was Rodney Jerkins. You guys know Rodney Darkchild. And so we met each other out here, and instantly we realized we're kind of like the same person. So we've always been in like a slight competition. He has like 1 million more hits than me. But what I have over him is I've actually broken artists. He's never broken an artist. So we talk about that all the time. Like, he said, man, I got hits on Michael Jackson, Beyonce. I said, but yeah, they were Michael Jackson and Beyonce before you got there. I said, I created Michael Jackson and Beyonce out of nothing. Nobody knew who Mary Mary was. Like, nobody knew who Mario was. Like, nobody knew who blah, blah, blah. I can go down the line. I said, you got to break an artist. He was like, well, you got to, So I'm like, okay. So then I do Kanye, then I do Brandy, then I do... Yeah. I was like, you got to... Then he just booked his new artist recently. So we talked about it. But it's like in an encouraging way. It was like we're boys, right? Yeah. But like, it's kind of like I would imitate him sometimes. Like, I would listen to something he did. And I would find myself doing that. Like, man, I got to stop. I got to get out of that. You know what I mean? And I think he did it a couple times. And instead of just throwing the record away, he sent it to me. He's like, man, this is a record that you would do. And so I took that record and used it for one of my artists. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So it could be a cool thing, but you got to find your own path. That's the way we find ourselves. Like, I started out imitating two people, DJ Quick and this other guy named Keith Crouch. Those two guys I would emulate. All my early music sounds like them. Mm-hmm. So you do that, and it's okay. You do that until you find your voice. That helps you find your path and, your sound. Imitating, I don't think anything's wrong with it. But stealing, that's a whole other thing. Like, I'm just gonna steal your stuff and just do it. Because that's how we get a Just Blaze, a Kanye. These guys were imitating a guy named Bink. Yeah. That people don't hear about Bink, but Bink is the real architect of that sound, taking those samples and speeding them with the soul samples, putting the hard drums on them. Bink is the guy that started that. Yeah. Bink is the one that did like the blueprint. Like, all the stuff that Kanye just did do, it was Bink. Yeah. They were just doing what he did. Yeah. And he wasn't signed to Rockefeller. Yeah. He had his own thing, so they didn't promote him like that. They promoted Just Blaze like he created it or Kanye created it. They'll all tell you like, Bink, I was just copying what Bink was doing. Yeah.
Did you ever have moments where you thought to yourself like, why can't I be as good as them? Or did you always kind of have that confidence of like, no, I know I'm good?
A million times, like, man, when you see what somebody else is doing, and they're doing what you want to do, they're working on the artist you want to work on, or write on, or produce, like, dang, I'm good enough to do that. You know what I mean? And so you just got to push yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can sit around and be mad about it, or you can get to work.
Yeah. That's how I felt like when I was over at Warryn Studio. You just see like the most incredible artists and producers, just killing it, and you just be sitting there like, oh man, like but 100%, like that challenge was like rising up and being like, all right, I gotta just work. And
hard. I didn't know he could do beats at all. Like, he was like literally like patching stuff in, and I would see him over there sweeping up the floor. So I didn't know it was the late great Heavy D. Heavy walked in, and he was like, yo, because you and Jen, y'all was in the room over there making beats. I had no idea. Yeah. Right? So he was like, yo, man, they over there, you should check them kids out. They over there killing. I was like, who? And I'm like, really? Yeah. And then I heard something. I was like, no, this is dope. I had no idea. No. You know what I'm saying? But you just gotta, by that time I was like, man, they're really dope, And so I started, kind of doing a couple things with them. I can't. It's a blur now. I'm sure we did a bunch of
100%
stuff, but like, you just got to break your way out of it, and when you're talking about being in somebody's shadow, that's like I was in DJ Quick's shadow. Like, I couldn't because I was like DJ Quick's little guy, the keyboard player, And I was in the shadow of my own self as a keyboard player because people knew me as a keyboard player. They refused to recognize me as a producer. At that time, if you played in a band on the road with an artist, people didn't respect you as a producer, even if you knew what you were doing. So with Brandy, I was in her band as a keyboard player, and I wrote these songs while we were on the road, and she wanted to cut the songs. So when we got home from the road, she came to my mom's house in the garage, not the house now, but our old house. It was actually a garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just had like an ADAT in the garage,
Oh, shoot.
She sung the song, killed it. I take the song to the record company, they love it. So, we want to cut this song. How much you want for the song?
What qualities do you look for in the people that you choose to collaborate with?
One, I look to collaborate with people that don't do what I do. I do write lyrics, but I look to collaborate with great lyric and melody people like a James Fauntleroy or somebody like that. Guys who I make beats with guys who are just better than me. I look to collaborate with people that are better than me in certain areas. You know what I mean?
What would you consider your writing style as? Are you more like a direct, in your face type of writer, or you're more elusive? You're vague with your words, or curious what your writing.
Oh, you mean the writing style, what's
your process? Yeah, creatively.
Well, process-wise, I'm a casual writer because I don't write anything down. Just go on the mic and freestyle a lot of my stuff, melodies, stuff like that. But in terms of how I'm writing, in terms of the subject matter, that comes from the artist I'm writing for. I sit down and talk to them. We might talk for a whole day, 2 days, and just hang out. Like I would go eat, go to the movies, just chill. I want to know what they're into, and from that's how I find out. That's how I find out, what they would be comfortable talking about because they've already talked to me about it. So while they're talking, I'm formulating lyrics and melodies in my head and da-da-da. And by the time we get to see, I was working with this group one time years ago. It's kind of obscure gospel group. They were signed to Columbia Records, Sony. And they only had 8 days, right? First 2 days, we just riding around, talking, eating, and they're like, yo, we only got 6 days left. How we have to do a whole album. I said, oh, man, I've been writing the whole time. I'm like, what? So I sat at the piano. Remember when you said so. I started singing about that. I had already wrote 3 of the songs in my head. And then we got to going. We had a day left and we realized they had 9 records.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? That's just, and so it's very casual for me. I let it flow out, and I don't pay attention too much to styles, whatever the moment needs. That's what I'm gonna be. I'm just kind of fluid that way. I'll just do whatever the artist needs and whatever the moment needs, whatever the sound needs. I'm there for that.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask a question about you say you're doing music every day, just so it's just it's part of your, I feel identity. And it's how do you communicate to others, just setting your boundaries, this is what this time is me.
And ask me that one more time. Setting your boundaries this time is for me, and this time is for the client.
Balance between your family, between work, between whatever. I mean,
well, how old are you?
27.
Yeah. So I started at 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no balance. There was no boundaries. It was just music.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I didn't care. I had friends and stuff, but then I remember one day I had just graduated high school. I was 17. I hadn't seen none of my friends in 6 months. My good, Nissan and all those guys.
Yeah.
We grew up together from 10 years old. And they were called. That's back when we had pagers. They were paging me. I was in the garage in my underwear and a wife beater, right? Hot in Chatsworth, my mom's garage. And my equipment, I literally was not moved. I was in there making beats because I found something. I found this sound. I was making these records, and I had a Fender Rhodes, a Juno 60, this Korg 01W, my drum machines, in 3 8-acts, right? And I just found this in my DX21
You have the SP2?
at SP2, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And so I just found my sound, and DJ Quick gave me my first drum sounds. He gave me a whole briefcase full of floppy disks with all his sounds on there. So now I got these sounds, and I'm putting all this stuff together that's like incredible, and I don't want to leave the room. I don't leave my house for like 4 months. I don't go anywhere. So I'm in there making music, and so my garage, the top of your garage has a little windows up there. People can, my friends, especially my friend Nissan and his brother Raptor, they're like 6'6", right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I hear do. And I could see their heads. I opened the garage. They was like, "Man, where you been?" They was like, they thought something happened to me. I had no balance. I had no family time, no friends. I was just, this is it. I learned that later once I got older. But when you're young, man, take advantage of that time where you could just grind. You don't got kids. You don't got. Now I got 3 kids. I got 1 in college and 2 going to middle school. You know, I'm like, I can't. I do music Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's it. After Wednesday, there's no music anymore. I'm doing meetings, other stuff. Like when I leave there, I got to do some meeting and got things like that. But now I have boundaries. Now I have set times. I got to have date night with my wife. I got to,
Damn,
But before that, huh?
I'm learning that right now.
Yeah, you got
My daughter and everything. So go ahead.
You got to do that but before that, this dude used to be in the studio nonstop. He had no. He was just in there. I'm like, man, they're still in there? I'm out. Like, I come back, they still. I remember one time I took a picture of you guys. Y'all had on little red beanies.
Yeah.
I said, y'all look like some little elves in here, man. Just going like,
But that's really where you get your, you cut your teeth. It's like, when nobody's looking, and I feel like those times, and I'm thankful for having that room and being able to do that because, there was a shower there, so I didn't leave, you just have to put in that time and that effort. But yeah.
Wait, my shower? Y'all using my shower?
I was using nothing.
He's like, he's
I
about
was
to
going
explain.
upstairs.
That was a great time, man.
Yeah.
And I just remember being, you think about Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, all these guys. And I knew Kobe, you know what I'm saying? And this dude was about basketball. Nothing else. He didn't care about nothing else, right? For a small, brief moment, this is how I met him. He wanted to rap for a minute, and so they put me and him together. But he saw that, it was literally like a couple months. And to pull his focus from basketball, he's like, I'm done with that. And it was just,
Back to it.
this is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything else.
Mama mentality.
You just mama mentality, man. And because of that, and if you look at it and just study it, most successful people who are successful on the Prince, Michael Jackson level, a lot of them don't have kids. They don't have much of a social life. They don't have, because it's all about that. And that's what makes them great, who they are. Quincy Jones is the greatest, but he sacrificed a lot. He has 800 wives, 900 kids. Like, he just couldn't do the other parts of life very well because this was like the thing. For me, I'm fortunate enough to do all that stuff early before I got married. I got married at 25, but, I did most of this stuff before that. When I started at 13, I just started going, Most of that stuff I did before that, and then I found a balance because my wife was my artist. So I didn't have the, what are you doing? She knows what I'm doing because she does it too. You know what I mean? So it wasn't as hard for a lot of my friends who their wives work at an office somewhere and they're like, you got to come home for dinner. And like, I'm making the best beat I ever made in my life. I can't come home. I didn't have that. She understood like, oh, he's in it. He's in work mode. He's killing it. Like, and it's going to benefit me. Maybe I'm going to get that beat. You know what I'm saying? So.
Nice. Well, let's give it up for Warryn Campbell for coming through.